Welcome to What Do You Know Wednesday,
where we put each other on the spot so you don't have to.
one topic and one host who knows things.
One host who knows some things.
Mm-hmm. So today we're going to talk about the CTR ring. Quick gut check before I bury you in details, Hannah. What do you know about where it actually came from?
Nothing. I know nothing about where it came from, but I think
I found one thing that you don't know a whole lot about already.
I know nothing about it. I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated to know.
Okay, here's a fun place to start. In 2006, a reporter visits Coy Miles. He's the jeweler who actually manufactured the first CTR ring at his house. And his house is full of stuff. Paintings by a famous Mormon artist he personally commissioned. He's got plaques, Relief Society jewelry he designed, collector plates, decades of promotional work. But the one thing he keeps in a small blue box on his dining room table, like it's the crown jewel of his whole career, is an original CTR ring. And here's what they quoted him saying. "It's the smallest, simplest thing I ever made. And now it's become the biggest."
I mean, it's iconic. Right?
It is.
Yeah, it's an iconic symbol. Yeah. I have so many questions. When, where, how, who?
We will answer those. So I want to go back to the really, really basics here. Choose the right isn't in scripture. The closest you get is Isaiah, who says choose the good or choose the things that please God. So Brigham Young reportedly used similar language to that in an early sermon, though the exact date isn't pinned down in the sourcing that I could verify. But the phrase doesn't actually enter Mormon culture until 1909, when the hymnal adds "Choose the Right," which was written by a convert named Joseph L. Townsend, who says the phrase 14 times across the verses of that song.
Choose the right when a choice is placed before you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I know.
Right. Yep. I want to say, like, the tune.
In his sight is part of it, right? Sight.
Yeah, it's not one of the primary bangers that stuck with me.
I thought this would be like okay.
He writes that song in 1909, and then it sits in there for 60 years in hymn books before any ring exists. The ring itself starts in 1970. So Gordon B. Hinckley announces the new CTR primary curriculum at a general conference, and he promises a ring to every 6 and 7-year-old.
That's right. You got it right before you got baptized. Well, at least you got it when you got baptized. When I was in the 80s, that was the thing. Okay. So go ahead. So the kids are excited.
So it's interesting. So there are 3 groups that are all kind of claiming some ownership here, and they do it like 10 years apart.
Okay.
So I had to work to untangle this a little bit, because there are like at least 3 separate groups of women. And when the people go back and they look at the history here, everything kind of gets folded into one committee, but it really wasn't one committee. So the first group starts out in the early to mid 1960s. There are 3 primary general board members: Helen Aldridge, Lorene Wilkinson, and Marjorie Cannon. And they're sitting in Wilkinson's living room trying to figure out how to reach kids better. Okay. Cannon suggests that kids like secret symbols. And so that's
and
where
Mormons like secret symbols too.
They sure do.
She's like, kids like secret symbols?
Yeah.
We have secret symbols in the temple. Mm-hmm. We could pair those two.
How interesting.
We could prepare kids to think
they sit
in
so
conspiracy-minded terms so that they'll be perfectly ready for it when they're older. Got it.
They will be. Yep. So this little detail, it really made me kind of chuckle. They almost didn't land on CTR at all, right? Because they were fighting over the letters. Aldridge didn't like the T. So for a while, they were seriously considering RC for right choice, except RC also reads as Roman Catholic, or RC Cola, for those of us old enough to remember it. And I sure do. My Aunt Shirley used to drink like half a dozen a day, I swear. And so they went back to CTR specifically to dodge the soda pun. They were specifically avoiding the RC Cola association.
Okay.
So that is in the historical record. Wilkinson also says that it was her idea to put it on a ring in the first place. She'd once given her own daughter a ring to remind her to stop twisting her hair at school. And so she pitched the CTR version to the primary board president at the time, who was Laverne Parmley, who shot it down, said it was too expensive. So then comes group 2. And this is a curriculum committee led by Naomi Ramble. And she is the I Am a Child of God lyricist. You
Okay. I
probably
did not
knew
know that.
Yeah.
All right. What?
Oh, you didn't know that. Woo, another thing you didn't already know. So
I hate that song. Sorry,
So
no offense.
So this committee is, another one that gets folded into the committee, kind of historical retelling, but it was 3. So Naomi recommends the shield for the official primary materials around the same time that Nichols Group is finalizing the ring itself.
Okay.
So Nichols has her own great line about that final step, by the way. I said they almost dropped the T entirely and go with just CR, choose right. But she says, quote, she went home that night to think about it. That's when the inspiration came that the word the was the most important word of all. Choosing right could mean many things, but choosing the right meant there was only one way.
Oh, it gets worse.
How very authoritarian.
She made it worse. Okay.
She did.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I definitely see the rationale behind that argument.
Yeah. And so then things start to get messy as I'm looking through and trying to track the history of it here. And it's not because there's a fringe blog stirring things up. It was the Salt Lake Tribune running an entire feature in 2006 because their readers wouldn't let it go. People were contesting, no, it was just one committee. No, there was multiple committees. No, it was this person.
Okay.
And so here's the backstory. The Tribune runs an obituary for Helen Aldridge, one of the first, the living room trio that we talked about. And her daughters say that their mom designed the shield logo. And readers lose it. Calls start flooding in with other names, other theories about who designed the CTR ring. So the Tribune goes and interviews the surviving players. So that's how they end up in Coy Mills' house. Coy Mills is the jeweler who was contracted to produce the ring. And he tells them the whole thing was basically his idea. He says the logo direction, the sample, the manufacturing, the distribution, at least early on, that was all him.
How did he get looped into it, though?
Yeah, well, he doesn't really say.
He wasn't on the committees.
He wasn't working primary.
So maybe the idea is they went to him and asked him to design something?
Yes, they did. Yeah. So he mentions that he once spotted a license plate on the road that said father of the CTR ring. And he tries to chase the guy down to find out who it was because he's like, no, that was me.
Well, also, what did the license plate actually say that he deciphered that? Because it was probably FRT, CTR. Do you know what I mean? There's only so many characters you couldn't fit on a plate.
Are you sure that that's really what it meant?
ING, yeah. Father of the CTR ring. Okay, but what did it say?
Yeah, but that just, it really just demonstrates he has this profound sense of ownership. And I think probably was fudging it a little bit.
I love it though.
But so meanwhile, this is going on.
Brilliant.
And Wilkinson, when asked directly who actually gets credit for the shield, basically shrugs at the whole premise. And her quote is this: I don't want to detract from Helen's honor and glory. She was an absolute angel. But when you're trying to give credit, you run into trouble. I just think you have to give it all to the 3 of us and leave it at that. So
memories are faulty, and half of our memories, yours, mine, everyone's, it's hard to put stock in, giving one person
full credit.
Yeah, exactly. I think that her view is the more nuanced one, which is through the years, no matter what happened and no matter who said what, surely nobody has an accurate remembrance 100%
No,
of what happened there, because that's not how memory works.
agreed. And it just gets a little bit messier when we're recalling things. But what we do, we have another player who comes.
Another? Still?
The artist that worked for Miles, the jeweler. So his name is Joel Isaac. And he confirms to the Tribune that he built the logo under Miles' direction.
Okay.
So even the official 2001 Deseret News version of this whole story that people were referencing when the Tribune ran theirs, Miles gets the design credit and Isaac does the artwork. And that story exists because Isaac backed up Miles' version that I'm the true owner, like decades earlier. But then when Isaac died in 2021, his obituary calls the CTR ring his, quote, most well-known anonymous work.
Oh my God, that's brilliant.
Yeah. So Miles died in 2008 at 91 of congestive heart failure. That's jeweler. And his own obituary literally calls him, quote, the principal originator and supplier of the CTR ring. So we have these two dueling obituaries, basically.
People are putting a lot of stake and stock in this
ownership
legacy.
over
Yeah.
this. But there's one more thing that was hilarious, and I experienced this myself actually, that I just wanted to note. Like the first 10,000 rings that Miles made actually turned kids' fingers black.
Okay, no, not the first 10,000. They never
Anymore.
stopped. They never didn't turn your finger green with the stainless steel, like
With
copper.
that, yeah.
100,000%. I mean, we all know you haven't been a Mormon kid if you haven't had a CTR ring stain your finger green.
Right. Well, so to try to figure out what actually was going on with all of these conflicting reports on who owned what and who thought up what and who dreamed up this or whatever, I decided to follow the money. So Miles never patented or copyrighted the design himself. The church ended up holding the copyright, of course.
Yeah.
And for years, nobody owned the trademark either. So random jewelers just ran with it. There's an Israeli jewelry store in Jerusalem making Hebrew lettered CTR rings for Mormon tourists starting in the late 1980s.
I bet they sell like hotcakes.
They did. So
do you think that they are still in business?
They had to stop.
Oh, they did? Okay.
So I actually pulled the real trademark filings and so I had to go and check the U.S. Patent Office records directly. The shield design was trademarked way earlier than I expected, given all of the controversy. It was filed in November 1987 and then registered in September 1988. But the plain word CTR by itself wasn't trademarked until it was filed in August 1996 and then registered in January 1998. And so that second one is really interesting timing. So in August 1996, that's almost exactly when a company called Ring Masters, they're an Ogden-based firm, they're exploding. And by 1997, they're making Inc. magazine's 500 fastest growing companies list. Well, almost 400,000 CTR rings a year are manufactured in the Philippines for official primary distribution by this firm. Plus, there's a commercial line in nearly 40 languages.
Were they the ones making them for the church?
They were making them for themselves.
Okay, so when you said primary distribution, you did not mean to primary children.
They did do some to primary children, but they did $2.5 million in sales. And almost half of it were CTR rings. So these ones aren't going to children. So, they have a gold signet ring.
Oh, you used to be able to get every color?
Yes.
It'd be like bright pink. Yeah, I remember.
So they were doing these custom ones. Yeah. So their gold signet ring was called the Samson, and its price was $449.95. One customer had a half a carat diamond mounted into her CTR ring. And these guys even had a glow in the dark option.
Just in case. Actually, that's when you need it the
Yeah.
most.
So this company's making all this money, and the church locks down the bare word CTR as a trademark.
They're like
right out.
seeing all that money just sliding away from them.
Yep. And so just as these guys are making a ton of money, the church says no. And by 2005, official church distribution alone was putting out over 500,000 new rings a year in 24 different languages. So they took the idea. And that's even before you count like Deseret Book or Independence.
Yeah, I was going to say, because so the church owns Deseret Book. So any CTR rings sold via Deseret Book are church approved, because they have all the different options as well. Every color, every variety under the sun. They probably have camo ones, you know.
Yeah, they have whatever you want. They've probably got it. But what's interesting is I looked through this. I remember the CTR ring. I, in fact, received a silver one as a ring for a wedding proposal. That's a whole nother story we'll talk about some other time. But
I thought you were going to say for your baptism, as is appropriate.
I know, that
as a
poor
child
that I stopped writing to. But
oh God.
But anyway, so I wanted to understand, like, because it has become such a kind of cultural phenomenon in certain circles. So Colleen McDaniel, who holds the religious studies chair at the University of Utah, she puts CTR rings next to crosses in her book, Material Christianity. She says they're objects that let religious people wear identity instead of stating it. But interestingly, the meaning went places nobody designed for. Bikers apparently told Ringmaster's co-owner that CTR stands for Corrupt the Righteous. And another customer said it's Catholics totally rule. So people were just doing whatever they wanted with that CTR moniker. And it got worn on the left pinky as a signal among some gay Utah men in the 1990s. So that's how they let each other know.
I don't think it was that secret if they're wearing a freaking CTR ring on their pinky. I think you're telling everyone.
Well, and I even saw some student reports that some non-Mormon guys would wear a CTR ring specifically to try to blend into the local college dating scenes in Utah and Idaho.
I mean, interesting, because it's not like the TBMs were doing that probably, right? Again, it's like, I mean,
the signaling. It's the signaling. Are you in or are you out?
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know what it's like now. I lived in Utah in the late 90s. And so people legit did, like adults, wear CTR rings. I just haven't seen one for so long, but I no longer live in the Mormon corridor. So it might still be like that. Or do you think? Or have things?
I think that they're still really treasured. So I found this small little story. So Ruth Klinger, so she was one of the 1970 committee members. She used to give her kids gold or silver CTR rings when they turned 8. And I think lots of others carried that. But interestingly, on this one of her grandkids, Melody Klinger, she competed as Miss Sacramento in the Miss California pageant and was wearing her CTR ring. And a judge on the pageant committee looked at the ring and he said, well, what does CTR stand for? And she was quick-witted. She said, it means choose the redhead, for the pageant. But I do think it's prevalent in enough TBM circles that I also saw like one other report that it's become an actual engagement ring in some circles.
Okay. Yeah, pin that story for another day. I have thought in recent years that I wonder how much of the choice of choose the right overlapped with the political ideology that they were trying to, with Ezra Taft Benson being so very conservative, if they were just not so subliminally telling their members which way to vote. And I still think there's something to that
angle. And yeah, that's one that I frankly didn't run down, but would be worth looking into.
Yeah, I was just like, this John Birch Society love that Ezra Taft Benson has, there's just something, and bear in mind, like during the Cold War, the church was so explicitly anti-communist, and I just wondered if it was like, we'll just tell our members. We're
Right.
supposed to be choosing the right politically.
As well as everything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Even though the church locked it down, I mean, they're still controlling how it gets reinterpreted. But I did find a New Era article that floated Christ the Redeemer as an alternate reading of CTR. And Russell M. Nelson apparently had used Current Temple Recommend as an adult-focused version of CTR. But you can now buy the ring in Klingon, Mandalorian, and Elvish if you're so inclined.
Are you serious?
Yep. So the ring handed to every 8-year-old with this clean little origin story of one committee, one designer, 35 cents. It's actually 3 separate groups a decade apart, and then 2 men publicly disputing credit in their own obituaries. And it's a design nobody bothered to protect until an outside company turned it into real money.
I would say that the 2 men, the jewelers, have the least claim. I say this,
agree.
I'm totally ignorant. I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know any of the details beyond what you told me today. I'm still ready to say. It's like, really?
Yeah.
I don't think, no, I'm not buying it. It was those ladies on that committee.
Yeah. But they went to their graves arguing over who invented it. And that's a pretty interesting story that
It really is.
you.
Dang. I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Father of the
Well, that's all
CTR
I've
ring.
got. That's all I've got. I'm so glad that you learned a lot. So
Well, thanks for sharing. And thank you for listening, Eternal Family.
Yeah, we will be back next week with another interesting piece of something to entertain you with, or at least entertain us. So find us on Post-Mormon, Postmortem, wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on socials and support us on Patreon. And Hannah, before we take off, I would just want to say, I'm so sorry for what I said when I was Mormon.
I too am sorry for what I said when I was Mormon.